Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something a little unexpected. Honey. Yes, honey. You probably won't survive without your go-to shampoo or that fancy bottle of lotion, but the ancient Egyptians. They didn't just use honey to sweeten their tea, they used it for almost everything. Imagine living in a world where honey was more than just a treat, it was medicine, a beauty product, a preservative, and even a spiritual offering. Tonight, we're going to unravel how honey played a starring role in ancient Egyptian life, health, and rituals. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you are and what time it is in your corner of the world. I'd love to hear. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. It might surprise you to learn that the ancient Egyptians, known for their pyramids and pharaohs, had a bit of a sweet tooth. But it wasn't just about satisfying cravings. Honey wasn't just a treat for the rich, it was a substance revered by all. From treating the wounds to embalming the dead, honey was at the center of their world. It wasn't just used for its sweetness, but for its healing, protective, and even spiritual qualities. While today we might reach for a jar of honey for our tea or skin care, the Egyptians saw it as a multi-purpose, almost magical resource. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptians truly understood the science behind honey's antibacterial properties, but one thing is for sure, they knew it worked. They used honey to treat everything from minor cuts to digestive issues, and it played a key role in their religious and funeral practices. Honey wasn't just food, it was life. It was death. And it was everything in between. Let's begin by taking a closer look at honey's most important role in the ancient Egyptian world, its medicinal uses. Back then, the Egyptians didn't have access to the modern pharmaceuticals we rely on today. Instead, they turned to natural remedies. And among these remedies, honey was king. It wasn't just something they'd drizzle over their bread. Honey was used to treat everything from minor cuts and burns to more serious ailments like digestive problems and infections. One of the main reasons honey was so prized is because of its natural antibacterial properties. The Egyptians, though they didn't have microscopes, were well aware that honey helped in preventing and treating infections. They used honey to treat wounds by applying it directly to cuts, scrapes, and burns, creating a protective barrier that helped the skin heal. Honey's high viscosity made it an ideal material for sealing wounds and preventing bacteria from entering. In fact, even today, honey is used in modern medicine for its healing properties, particularly in wound care, much like the ancient Egyptians did. But it wasn't just about treating wounds. The Egyptians also relied on honey to aid in digestive health. Honey was used to treat indigestion, and it was often mixed with other ingredients like herbs, milk, or wine to create soothing tonics. Honey's natural enzymes help to break down food, making digestion easier and more effective. The ancient Egyptians, they didn't have antibiotics or probiotics, but honey, with its healing and soothing properties, was a powerful tool in their medicine cabinet. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians understood honey's exact medicinal properties, but one thing is clear, they used it effectively. Whether it was a simple honey and herb concoction, or a more elaborate treatment for serious injuries, honey was their go-to solution. And who could blame them after all? If it worked to heal wounds and soothe digestion, why wouldn't you trust it with everything from burns to belly aches? Let's turn our attention to one of the most fascinating uses of honey in ancient Egypt, its role in embalming in the afterlife. Honey was more than just a medicinal substance. It was a vital ingredient in ensuring that the deceased were preserved for eternity. This wasn't just a way to keep bodies intact, it was an essential part of the journey to the afterlife. Imagine, if you will, the intricate embalming process that the ancient Egyptians perfected, and how honey played a central role in preparing the dead for their next journey. When a person died, the Egyptians believed that preserving the body was essential for the soul's successful passage into the afterlife. They used a variety of natural substances, and honey was one of the key ingredients in the embalming process. Honey was used in multiple ways. Sometimes it was placed in the body's cavities, sometimes it was smeared on the skin to preserve it, and sometimes it was used to help create the final protective mummified wrapping. Why honey? Well, honey's ability to seal and protect was key. It acted as a natural preservative, preventing the body from decaying while allowing the process of mummification to take place. Historians still argue about the exact role of honey in mummification. Some suggest that the honey's antibacterial properties were crucial in the embalming process, while others think it may have been more symbolic, representing nourishment for the soul on its journey. Either way, there's no denying that honey's role in embalming was crucial. The Egyptians understood that death was not the end, it was simply another stage in the journey. And honey was part of that transition. It wasn't just about preserving the body, it was about preparing the deceased for eternity. Imagine walking into an ancient Egyptian tomb, with its walls decorated in vibrant, sacred scenes. In the center lies the mummified body of a pharaoh, carefully wrapped and coated with layers of honey-infused resins. The air is thick with incense, and the honey's golden sheen reflects the dim torchlight. This was no ordinary burial. This was a ritual that ensured the deceased would be carried into the afterlife, protected and preserved by the golden nectar. But honey wasn't just about preserving the dead. It was also used in daily life to preserve the living. The Egyptians were ahead of their time when it came to using natural substances for practical purposes. Honey wasn't just a tool for healing, it was a preservative for food, a beauty aid, and even a part of the rituals that governed their daily existence. Honey, with its antimicrobial properties, was a valuable resource for ensuring food stayed fresh in a world without refrigeration. In ancient Egypt, honey was used to preserve fruits, vegetables, and grains, especially during times of abundance. When the harvest was plentiful, honey was often used to coat or sweeten these foods, creating a kind of preservation method that lasted for months. It wasn't just for the rich, it was a necessity for everyone. Honey helped maintain the food supply, ensuring that the people of Egypt had access to sustenance even in times of drought or famine. It wasn't just about storing food for convenience, it was about survival. In a land where the Nile's annual flooding was a key determinant of the harvest, preserving food with honey ensured that no one would go hungry. Historians still debate whether the Egyptians invented the practice of preserving food with honey, or whether they adopted it from other cultures, but what's certain is that they used it extensively. In fact, the use of honey in food preservation has remained a practice that we still rely on today. The ability to preserve food naturally, without the need for artificial chemicals, was a skill that the ancient Egyptians mastered. And it wasn't just for practical purposes. Honey, as a sweetener, added a rich flavor to their diet, turning ordinary meals into something special. Now, picture this: an Egyptian woman in a small mud brick home, carefully sealing jars of dates and figs with honey. She adds a touch of sweetener to the mix, knowing that these jars will keep her family fed during the leaner months. The sticky golden substance is smeared onto the jars, sealing them shut, ensuring that her family's meals will be fresh when the harvest season is over. It's a small but vital act of survival in a world governed by nature's unpredictable rhythms. As we've seen, honey was not just a food or a medicine for the Egyptians, it was also a cornerstone of their beauty rituals. The ancient Egyptians were known for their meticulous attention to personal appearance, and honey was a crucial part of their grooming routines. It wasn't just for healing wounds or sweetening tea, it was used to maintain youthful, radiant skin and glossy hair. Honey's natural moisturizing properties made it an ideal ingredient for beauty treatments, and it was incorporated into oils, balms, and even facial masks. One of the most common uses of honey in ancient Egyptian beauty routines was as a skin softener. The Egyptians were known for their smooth, radiant complexions, and honey played a key role in maintaining that glow. It was often mixed with other natural ingredients like milk, olive oil, and even aloe vera to create hydrating masks and treatments for the face. Honey's ability to lock in moisture and soothe dry skin made it a favorite among both the elite and commoners. Cleopatra, the famous Queen of Egypt, is said to have used honey in her beauty treatments, and it's likely that other high-ranking women followed suit, mixing it with fragrant oils and herbs for an extra touch of luxury. Historians still debate whether honey's beauty benefits were fully understood by the ancient Egyptians, or if they simply knew it worked and used it to their advantage. There's also the question of whether honey was used more for its practical benefits, such as treating skin conditions or soothing irritation, or whether it was a spiritual practice. The Egyptians believed in the importance of beauty as a reflection of inner health and strength, and honey may have been seen as a way to achieve both. Now imagine yourself in an ancient Egyptian bathhouse, the air thick with the scent of honey and herbs. You step into the warm water, your body sinking into the soothing warmth, and a servant carefully applies a honey-based mask to your face. The rich golden hue of the honey contrasts against your skin as it's massaged and bringing a sense of calm and luxury. You close your eyes, imagining yourself as one of the queens or princesses of Egypt, indulging in the rituals that have been passed down through generations. Let's turn now to a more unexpected use of honey in ancient Egypt, its role in food. While honey may have been used primarily as a medicinal and beauty product, it was also an essential ingredient in the Egyptian diet. But here's where it gets interesting. Honey wasn't just a sweetener, it was used in cooking to add more complexity to flavors, preserve foods, and create special dishes for religious or ceremonial occasions. In a world without sugar, honey was the go-to choice for sweetness, and it was prized for its ability to turn an ordinary meal into something extraordinary. Ancient Egyptian food, like much of their culture, was deeply connected to the land. Honey, being a product of nature, was part of the natural rhythm of Egyptian life, from the harvest to the celebrations. The Egyptians used honey not only to sweeten their food, but also to preserve fruits, vegetables, and grains for the lean months. They dipped fruits like figs or dates in honey to preserve them for later use, or mix honey with nuts to create treats that could be stored and enjoyed throughout the year. It wasn't just about food, it was about survival, ensuring that there was always something sweet and nourishing to eat, even during times of scarcity. Historians still debate how much honey influenced the diet of the average Egyptian. Some believe it was primarily consumed by the elite, while others argue that honey was widely available and used in everyday cooking. Regardless of how much was consumed, honey was certainly a staple in Egyptian kitchens, and it was included in dishes for both daily meals and special occasions. Honey was used in bread making, pastries, and even in alcoholic beverages like mead, a fermented drink made from honey, water, and fruit. Now, picture this. You're sitting in the bustling kitchen of an ancient Egyptian household, the air rich with the smells of baking bread and roasting meats. A large bowl of honey sits on the counter, its golden hue gleaming in the sunlight, streaming through the open window. You watch as the cook dips figs into the honey, coating them in sweetness before setting them aside to preserve them for the coming months. The simple act of using honey elevates the food, turning it into a treat, and connecting the cook to centuries of tradition. As we dive deeper into the wonders of honey, let's take a closer look at one of its most fascinating roles in ancient Egypt, its use in religious and spiritual practices. Honey wasn't just something you put on your toast or in your tea. It was revered as a sacred substance, often used in offerings to the gods. In Egyptian culture, honey had divine connotations, associated with the gods and their blessings. It was not just for physical sustenance, but was also seen as a tool for spiritual nourishment, a way to ensure favor and protection from the divine. Honey played a significant role in temple rituals, where it was offered to gods during prayers and ceremonies. The Egyptians believed that honey was a symbol of purity and sweetness qualities they wanted to pass on to their deities. It was often used in incense preparations or as a base for sacred oils, which priests would apply during religious rites. The rich golden hue of honey mirrored the color of the sun, further strengthening its association with Ra, the sun god, who is considered the ultimate source of life and vitality. Historians still argue whether honey was seen purely as a symbol, or if the Egyptians believed that its divine qualities could directly connect them to the gods. But either way, honey played an integral part in their spiritual lives. Imagine being in a grand Egyptian temple, the air heavy with the scent of incense. A priest carefully pours honey into a golden bowl, offering it to the statue of Ra. The ritual is simple but deeply symbolic. Honey is a gift to the gods, a way to communicate devotion and ask for their protection and favor. The honey, with its golden shine, is not just a substance, it's an offering that transcends the material world, a symbol of purity, power, and life itself. Historians still debate how much the Egyptians believed in the direct spiritual effects of honey, but there's no denying that they saw it as more than just a foodstuff. It was a sacred substance, tied to the gods, and deeply woven into their spiritual rituals. Whether it was offered during elaborate temple ceremonies or used as part of smaller household rites, honey was seen as a bridge between the earthly and divine realms, making it a central part of Egyptian religious practices. As we explore the sacred and medicinal uses of honey, let's now look at how honey became a social and cultural symbol in ancient Egypt. Beyond its religious and practical applications, honey was also used to signify wealth, power, and social status. For the elite, honey was not only a luxury item, but a symbol of their wealth and refinement. Just as today's most expensive products or rare delicacies are reserved for those with significant resources, honey in ancient Egypt was treated as a commodity with high value, often gifted in exchange during important ceremonies or among the elite. In fact, honey was often used in the most prestigious of feasts, where it played a central role in the lavish meals enjoyed by the pharaohs and their court. As the Egyptians didn't have sugar or refined sweeteners, honey became the preferred choice for making treats and beverages. And it wasn't just about flavor, it was about making an impression. The wealthy Egyptians would often mix honey with various fruits and nuts to create intricate desserts or blend it into wine to make a kind of mead. This sweet drink, sometimes reserved for special occasions, was a drink of the gods in Egyptian eyes, further emphasizing honey's sacred and prestigious status. Historians still argue about how honey was distributed among different classes in Egyptian society. Was it truly a luxury reserved for the elite, or was it more widely accessible? Even to the lower classes, evidence suggests that while the wealthier Egyptians had more access to honey, it was also valued among common people, who used it for medicinal purposes and even in their own religious practices. It wasn't just something reserved for feasts or celebrations, it was also something that had a practical everyday value. Picture this scene, an elegant banquet hall with richly adorned walls, golden plates, and the soft flicker of oil lamps casting shadows. The pharaoh sits at the head of the table, surrounded by his courtiers, who sip honeyed wine and eat fruits preserved in honey. It's not just about the food, it's about signaling power and refinement, a demonstration of wealth that reaches back to the gods themselves. Honey, in this context, is more than just a sweet treat, it's a statement of status, divine connection, and luxury. Let's now look at how honey was utilized in ancient Egyptian trade, where it wasn't just an item of domestic use, it became an economic commodity. While we often think of Egypt's trade network as being built around spices, linen, and gold, honey was one of the key goods that Egyptians exported. The Egyptians were resourceful traders, and honey, being so vital in both daily life and religious practices, held significant value. This liquid gold wasn't just used in Egypt, it was coveted by surrounding regions and traded with distant lands, from the Mediterranean to the Near East, and even further afield. The ancient Egyptians didn't just use honey in their own culture, they became one of the primary producers of honey in the ancient world. Due to their extensive beekeeping practices, they had a surplus of honey that was traded with neighboring civilizations. The Egyptians believed that honey was a divine gift, and they weren't shy about sharing it with others. Honey became an important export for Egypt, contributing not only to the wealth of the nation, but also to its cultural influence. Historians still debate the specifics of how honey was traded. Did it serve as currency? Was it bartered for other goods? It's unclear whether honey was used directly in trade for goods, or whether it was mostly exchanged in special circumstances. However, what we do know is that honey was one of the many prized exports of ancient Egypt. Other nations appreciated its value not only as a sweetener and foodstuff, but for its medicinal and ritual uses. It was a product that carried the essence of Egypt's connection to the divine. Picture this: an ancient Egyptian merchant standing by the banks of the Nile, carefully sealing jars of honey with beeswax and transporting them in wooden crates. These crates would travel across Egypt and into neighboring lands, where the precious honey would be sold, traded, or used in religious rites. The honey, coveted for its sweetness and sacred qualities, was now a part of international commerce, carrying with it a piece of Egyptian culture. Now, let's zoom in on the fascinating practice of beekeeping in ancient Egypt. While it might seem like a humble task, beekeeping was actually an advanced and highly valued skill in ancient Egyptian society. The Egyptians understood the vital role that bees played in both the ecosystem and their daily lives, and they were among the first to develop sophisticated methods of beekeeping. Unlike many other ancient civilizations, the Egyptians didn't just collect wild honey, they actively kept and cultivated beehives, ensuring a steady and reliable supply of their precious resource. The beekeeping process in ancient Egypt was highly organized. Hives were typically made from cylindrical clay pots, which would be stacked on top of each other to form large beehives. These hives were placed in areas with abundant flowering plants to ensure the bees had enough nectar to make honey. The beekeepers would carefully manage the hives, ensuring that the bees were healthy and productive. The Egyptians had a deep understanding of the natural behavior of bees, and they knew how to harvest honey without disturbing the colony. Historians still argue about how much beekeeping knowledge the Egyptians inherited from earlier cultures. Some scholars suggest that the Egyptians might have learned their techniques from the Sumerians or other neighboring civilizations. However, the evidence we have indicates that the Egyptians refined and perfected beekeeping, taking it to a new level of sophistication. The Egyptians used honey for a variety of purposes, but they also saw the bees themselves as sacred creatures, linking them to the gods. The role of bees was symbolic, representing industriousness, fertility, and creation. Now, imagine yourself walking through an ancient Egyptian field, the warm sun beating down as you see rows of clay beehives nestled under the shade of palm trees. The air is filled with the sound of buzzing as the bees work tirelessly, creating their sweet harvest. The beekeepers carefully inspect the hives, their faces covered to protect from stings, and begin harvesting the golden honey. This is more than just work. It's a sacred ritual, connecting the people to the divine as they collect honey, the nectar of the gods. As we explore the Egyptians' fascination with honey, it's fascinating to realize just how deeply intertwined honey was with their culture. It wasn't just a product they used, it was woven into their very way of life, including their writing, medicine, and even religious beliefs. The ancient Egyptians were prolific writers, and they documented just about everything, from their daily activities to their medical treatments. In fact, honey appears in many of their written records, particularly in medical texts and recipes, showcasing its value and importance to their health and well-being. The use of honey in Egyptian medicine was so vital that it made its way into several medical papyri, which are some of the earliest examples of documented medical knowledge. These texts show how honey was applied to a variety of ailments, from wound care to treating digestive issues. Honey was even used as an ingredient in healing salves, ointments, and balms. The Ebers Papyrus, one of the most famous of these ancient medical texts, features multiple references to honey, emphasizing its importance in ancient Egyptian healing practices. Historians still argue whether these texts represent a systematic understanding of medicine or a blend of trial and error. However, what's undeniable is that honey's value as a therapeutic tool was widely recognized and applied across ancient Egypt. Honey wasn't just a go-to remedy for physical ailments, it was also believed to have magical properties. The Egyptians considered honey a gift from the gods, and it was often used in religious ceremonies and rituals. It was thought to purify the body and soul, making it an essential offering in religious rites. It's said that the ancient Egyptians used honey as an offering to the gods, invoking the sweetness of life and the sweetness of the afterlife. Imagine standing in an ancient Egyptian temple, the air filled with incense and the scent of honey offerings. The priests, dressed in simple linen garments, prepare small bowls of honey to place before the statues of their gods. This is not just an offering of food, it's an offering of purity, sweetness, and hope. Honey in these ceremonies wasn't just used as a treat, it was a ritualistic tool, a substance that connected the people with the divine. Let's take a moment to step back and appreciate how honey was used in the broader cultural and religious landscape of ancient Egypt. While honey's applications in medicine and daily life were crucial, its symbolic and ritualistic uses truly set it apart. Honey was considered a bridge between the earthly and divine, a sacred offering that connected the human world to the gods. In fact, honey wasn't just a material resource, it was a symbol of the divine order and purity, and it played an essential role in both domestic and religious life. Honey was often used as part of Egyptian rituals dedicated to the gods, especially Ra, the sun god, whose energy was believed to bring a life and balance to the world. It wasn't uncommon for honey to be offered as part of the temple ceremonies to honor Ra and other deities. The ritual involved pouring honey into golden or ceramic vessels, and these would be placed in front of statues of the gods or used to anoint sacred objects. Some scholars argue that honey's golden color was symbolic of the sun's rays, further solidifying its connection to Ra and the divine. Honey wasn't just a gift, it was a communication tool, a physical manifestation of devotion. Historians still debate the extent to which the Egyptians believed that honey itself had divine qualities, or if it was simply a way to show reverence. But one thing is clear, honey's role in these religious ceremonies was not just about the physical substance. It was deeply symbolic, representing purity, life, and the blessings of the gods. The Egyptians believed that by offering honey, they were ensuring divine favor, securing protection, and connecting their earthly existence to the eternal. Picture this: the grand hall of an Egyptian temple, the air thick with incense and the hum of prayers. A priest carefully takes a jar of honey, holding it up to the sun, and as its golden glow reflects off the walls, he pours it into a stone vessel before the statue of Ra, offering the sweetness as a symbol of life and gratitude. The honey, glowing under the rays of the sun, seems almost alive, a direct connection to the divine forces that govern the world. Now that we've seen honey's role in religious ceremonies, let's focus on how it was integrated into Egyptian everyday life. Although honey was often associated with the gods in the afterlife, it was also a vital resource in the homes of common Egyptians. In fact, honey was one of the few luxuries that was both accessible and affordable for the majority of the population, unlike other items like perfumes or exotic spices. While the wealthier Egyptians used honey for elaborate meals and rituals, the common folk used it for its practical properties: healing, preserving food, and even sweetening their beverages. For the average Egyptian, honey was often used as a key ingredient in cooking, especially in dishes that required sweetness or preservation. Without sugar, honey was the perfect substitute, and it was often used in bread making, cakes, and fruit preserves. Imagine, for a moment, an Egyptian baker kneading dough with honey, preparing loaves of sweetened bread that would be enjoyed by families throughout the village. Honey was the only sweetener they had, and it became the backbone of their culinary traditions. Historians still argue whether the common folk used honey as extensively as the elite, or if it was reserved primarily for medicinal and spiritual purposes. However, many believe that honey was more accessible than we often think, especially in rural areas where beekeeping was practiced. Honey's use in daily life wasn't just limited to food, its versatility made it a necessity in Egyptian households. From small villages to large cities like Thebes, honey was a practical resource, revered not only for its divine symbolism, but for its function in sustaining life. Picture a warm, bustling village in ancient Egypt, the scent of baking bread wafting from the baker's stall. There, you see a family preparing a simple meal, using honey to preserve figs and dates for the coming months. The honey, thick and golden, is applied to the fruit, sealing it in jars for storage. It's more than just food, it's a connection to the earth and the gods. A humble, sweet offering that will nourish the family long after the harvest is past. Let's take a moment now to talk about something truly remarkable: the Egyptian innovation in beekeeping. Honey didn't just come from the wild. The Egyptians were among the first to develop sophisticated methods for keeping bees. Ancient Egyptian beekeeping was an art form, and they were known for their advanced techniques in managing hives, collecting honey, and ensuring that the bees produced honey in abundance. They didn't just harvest honey from wild beehives, they raised their own bees, crafting specially designed beehives that allowed them to control the process of honey production. These hives were typically made from cylindrical clay pots or hollowed-out logs, which were stacked on top of each other. This method of hive construction allowed the Egyptians to manage multiple hives efficiently and increase their yield of honey. The beekeepers would place these hives in areas rich with flowers and plants that attracted bees, ensuring that their bees would produce high-quality honey. But beekeeping wasn't just about honey production. It was also about maintaining a healthy bee colony. Egyptians understood the importance of keeping bees in optimal conditions, ensuring that they were free from disease and able to produce honey year-round. Historians still debate how the Egyptians came to develop such sophisticated beekeeping practices. Did they innovate on their own, Or did they learn from other civilizations? Some suggest that beekeeping may have been borrowed from other cultures like the Sumerians, but it's clear that the Egyptians refined the practice and turned it into an essential part of their culture. They were pioneers in the art of beekeeping, and their practices influenced many subsequent civilizations. Imagine yourself as a beekeeper in ancient Egypt, working in a sunlit field surrounded by rows of beehives, and the sound of bees buzzing fills the air as you carefully inspect each hive, checking for honey and ensuring the bees are healthy. With a keen eye and steady hands, you remove the honeycomb, the golden liquid dripping down into a pot. This honey, created by the hard work of thousands of bees, will soon be used for food, medicine, and rituals, and will help sustain your community for months to come. It's a labor of love, connection, and respect for nature, a practice that has been passed down for generations. As we continue our journey through the world of honey in ancient Egypt, let's explore the fascinating connection between honey and Egypt's economic and social structures. Honey wasn't just a commodity, it was a valuable asset, often traded, gifted, and used as a symbol of wealth. As we've already seen, honey was highly revered in Egypt for its medicinal, culinary, and spiritual purposes. But beyond its everyday applications, honey also played a crucial role in Egypt's economy. It was a valuable export product and an important part of the ancient Egyptian trade network. Honey was so highly valued that it became a key part of Egypt's trade routes. The Egyptians traded honey not just within their own borders, but with neighboring civilizations. From the Mediterranean to sub-Saharan Africa, Egypt's honey was in high demand. It was used for a wide range of purposes as a sweetener, a medicine, a religious offering, and even a form of currency in some cases. The Egyptians understood that honey was more than just a food. It was a valuable resource that could be exchanged for other goods and services. Historians still debate whether honey was considered a form of currency in Egypt, or if it was primarily traded for other luxury goods. Some suggest that honey was a symbol of wealth, while others argue that it was more about the status and divine connections associated with it. Either way, honey was a significant part of Egypt's economy, and its value is recognized far beyond Egypt's borders. Imagine an Egyptian merchant preparing for a long journey, his cart loaded with jars of honey wrapped in cloth. He travels along the trade routes, crossing deserts and passing through bustling marketplaces, offering his honey in exchange for goods like cloth, spices, and rare metals. Each jar of honey carries with it a piece of Egyptian culture and reverence for the gods, a product that symbolizes purity, life, and divine favor. As the merchant makes his way to distant lands, he's not just selling honey, he's selling the very essence of Egypt itself. Let's take a step back and explore one of the most fascinating facets of ancient Egyptian honey, its use in the health and wellness practices that went beyond just medicine. While we've already touched on its use for treating wounds, digestive issues, and as a beauty product, honey's role in promoting overall well-being was vast. The Egyptians didn't just use honey for immediate health needs, they also understood its ability to sustain long-term vitality and boost energy. Honey wasn't just about treating sickness. It was seen as a gift from the gods to ensure the strength and longevity of both the body and the soul. Egyptians used honey in a variety of tonics and elixirs designed to enhance energy, maintain good health, and even improve mental clarity. These honey-based remedies were often combined with other natural ingredients such as herbs, fruits, and nuts to create potent solutions. For example, like a mixture of honey, figs, and dates was often used as an energy-boosting snack, perfect for preparing the body for physical labor or a long journey. This wasn't just food, it was nourishment for the soul, a sacred offering to the body that would help sustain its vitality. Historians still debate whether the Egyptians fully understood the scientific reasons behind honey's ability to boost energy and promote good health, but what's clear is that they had a deep belief in honey's restorative powers. Whether they knew about its high sugar content providing quick energy or simply recognized its benefits through trial and error, honey was seen as a key part of their wellness rituals. The ancient Egyptians valued balance in all things mind, body, and spirit, and honey was integral to maintaining that balance. Picture this an Egyptian worker heading out to the fields for a long day of labor under the scorching sun. Before he leaves, he reaches for a small, honey-sweetened mixture of dried fruit and nuts, a quick and natural pick-me-up that will help him endure the day ahead. As he chews the sweet mixture, he feels the surge of energy flood his body, knowing that this simple food, gifted by the gods, will help him stay strong throughout the day. Honey is more than just a food, it's a source of life, a tangible connection to the divine. Now that we've seen how honey played a role in health and energy, let's explore how the ancient Egyptians documented honey's uses in their vast body of medical knowledge. As we've already discussed, honey was a key element in Egyptian medicine, but it wasn't just used casually, it was carefully recorded in medical texts, some of which still survive to this day. These papyri, including the famous Ebers papyrus, contain a wealth of information about the medicinal properties of honey, showing just how deeply embedded it was in Egyptian life and health practices. The Ebers papyrus, dating back to around 1550 BCE, is one of the most important surviving medical texts from ancient Egypt. It includes hundreds of remedies for all kinds of ailments, many of which feature honey as a main ingredient. Whether it was for treating eye infections, healing burns, or soothing stomach pains, honey was a go-to treatment. These texts also show the intricate ways in which honey was combined with other ingredients, like herbs, oils, and animal products, to create effective medicines. The Egyptians were masters of creating multi-ingredient remedies, and honey was often the cornerstone of these concoctions. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians understood honey's exact therapeutic properties in the way we do today. With our knowledge of antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory benefits. However, the fact that honey was so widely used and recorded in their medical texts suggests they recognized its power and versatility. These records not only highlight honey's medicinal uses, but also offer a glimpse into the complexity of ancient Egyptian healthcare, which combined both natural remedies and spiritual beliefs. Imagine yourself in the quiet of an Egyptian scribe's workshop, illuminated by the flickering light of oil lamps. The scribe dips his reed pen into ink and carefully writes down the latest medical recipe on papyrus. The recipe calls for honey, mixed with crushed herbs and oils, to treat a stubborn wound or an upset stomach. These ancient medical texts are filled with recipes like this one, where honey is the hero of the treatment. In this workshop, as the scribe writes, the very substance that has been used for generations continues to play a vital role in the health of the Egyptian people. Now, let's turn our attention to the symbolism of honey in Egyptian religion and mythology. While we've discussed honey's medicinal and practical uses, its deeper cultural and spiritual significance deserves a closer look. In ancient Egypt, honey wasn't just something you used to treat an infection or sweeten a drink, it was considered sacred, a gift from the gods. The Egyptians believed that honey had a divine quality, and it played a prominent role in religious rituals, offerings, and even in the preparation of sacred ointments. One of the most fascinating aspects of honey in Egyptian spirituality was its association with the sun god, Ra. Ra, who was the central deity in the Egyptian pantheon, was considered the giver of life, light, and vitality. As the sun's rays were believed to provide the earth with warmth and life, honey, with its golden hue and sweetness, symbolized the essence of life itself. Historians still argue about the depth of this association. Was honey merely symbolic? Or did the Egyptians believe that it possessed literal divine power? While it's difficult to say definitively, it's clear that honey was seen as a substance that bridged the gap between the human world and the divine. Honey was often used in religious offerings to the gods. Temples would regularly receive honey as part of their ceremonial rites. Priests would use honey to anoint statues of gods, believing that the honey would imbue the statues with vitality and life. Additionally, honey was used in this preparation of sacred oils, which were applied to both people and sacred objects during rituals. The act of offering honey to the gods wasn't just about a material gift, it was a way of ensuring divine favor, protection, and prosperity. Now imagine walking through an Egyptian temple, the air thick with incense and the faint scent of honey, a priest wearing simple linen garments. She carefully pours honey into a golden bowl and holds it up to the statue of Ra. This offering is not just a physical substance, it's a connection between the mortal realm and the divine. As the honey glows in the soft temple light, it represents not just sweetness, but the very essence of a life itself, connecting the worshippers to the gods in a way that transcends the ordinary. As we explore the divine significance of honey, It's important to take a moment to consider how honey was deeply connected to Egyptian notions of immortality and the afterlife. In a society where the afterlife was as important as life itself, the preservation of the body and soul was paramount. Honey played an essential role in these practices, not just as a physical preservative, but as a symbolic substance tied to the continuation of life beyond death. Ancient Egyptians believed that honey had the power to protect, heal, and even confer immortality on the soul. When it came to embalming, honey was used not only as a preservative for the body, but also in the spiritual aspect of preparing the deceased for their journey to the afterlife. Honey was used in various parts of the mummification process, where it helped to preserve the body for eternity. Its golden color was linked to the divine, and it was thought that honey's ability to preserve the physical form also helped to secure the soul's place in the afterlife. Historians still debate whether honey was believed to provide immortality to the soul, or if it was simply a means to honor the deceased and protect them during their journey. Regardless, honey's presence in burial practices speaks to its profound spiritual significance. In addition to embalming, honey was placed in the tombs of the deceased. It wasn't just about preservation, it was an offering to the gods, ensuring that the departed would be sustained in the afterlife. In the tombs of pharaohs and high-ranking officials, honey jars were placed beside the body, serving as a divine sustenance to help them cross into the next world. These offerings were made in the belief that the dead would need nourishment as they journeyed through the realms of the afterlife, where food and water were scarce. Honey, sweet and pure, was believed to be the perfect offering, providing spiritual sustenance as well as symbolic connection to the divine. Imagine standing in a vast Egyptian tomb, dimly lit by flickering oil lamps, the scent of honey wafting through the air. The body of a high-ranking official lies in a golden sarcophagus, surrounded by jars of honey, which glows softly in the flickering light. The honey represents not just nourishment for the body, but an offering to the gods, a symbol of protection, and a promise of immortality. The afterlife isn't a distant realm, it's a continuation of life, and honey helps to ensure that the transition is smooth and that the soul will be cared for as it journeys onward. As we move further into the world of ancient Egyptian honey, let's now look at the role honey played in trade. While honey was a vital resource within Egypt, it was also a prized commodity in international trade, helping to connect Egypt with neighboring civilizations. Egypt was strategically located at the crossroads of Africa and the Mediterranean, and honey, like many other natural products, was a valuable export. This golden substance was not only prized for its medicinal and spiritual qualities, but also for its roles in food and daily life. It became a symbol of Egypt's prosperity and trade prowess. Honey was a valuable part of Egypt's economy. The Egyptians had developed advanced beekeeping techniques, ensuring a steady supply of honey for both domestic use and trade. While the wealthier Egyptians enjoyed honey in their feasts and religious ceremonies, the surplus honey produced by their beekeepers found its way across Egypt's borders. Honey was traded for other goods, including spices, textiles, metals, and even exotic materials like ivory and incense. Egypt's honey became an essential part of the Mediterranean trade network, reaching as far as Mesopotamia and the Near East. Historians still debate the exact role of honey in Egypt's trade economy. Was it as valuable as gold or linen, or did it merely serve as a high-quality luxury item for the elites of neighboring regions? Some suggest that honey was one of the items traded for the raw materials that Egypt lacked, like cedarwood from Lebanon or lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. But whatever its exact value, honey was undoubtedly an important trade good that symbolized Egypt's wealth, knowledge, and cultural influence. Imagine standing in a bustling marketplace by the Nile, the air thick with the sounds of bartering and the scents of spices, dried fruits, and honey. Jars of honey, glistening in the sunlight, are displayed alongside bundles of linen and pottery. You watch as a merchant carefully packs jars of honey into clay pots, preparing them for trade to foreign lands. This honey will travel across the seas, reaching distant markets, where it will be prized for its purity and divine qualities. The humble jar of honey is not just a commodity, it's a bridge between cultures, a symbol of Egypt's power and influence. Now, let's turn our attention to something a little more curious: honey's connection to everyday life and social status in ancient Egypt. While honey was a highly prized commodity, it wasn't just for the elite, its importance stretched across all levels of society. For the common people, honey wasn't just something for religious rituals or mummification ceremonies. It was an everyday resource, used in cooking, for health, and even as a form of barter. However, honey's status as a luxury good meant that its usage often symbolized wealth and social standing, especially when it was used in feasts, gifts, and royal offerings. The wealthier Egyptians, of course, had access to more honey, often using it to make sweet treats, preserve fruits, and even create luxurious honey-based beverages like mead. But for the middle and lower classes, honey wasn't just a foodstuff. It was often used as a form of currency in trade or as an offering to the gods. Its value transcended the material, becoming a representation of Egypt's divine favor and prosperity. Even for commoners, offering honey to the gods or to their families during times of need was seen as a way of securing blessings and protection. Historians still debate how widely honey was consumed by the lower classes in comparison to the wealthy. Was honey truly accessible to everyone, or was it reserved for religious leaders, royalty, and those with wealth? While some argue that honey was likely a luxury reserved for the elite, others point to evidence suggesting that it was more available than we think. Whether used as a medicinal treatment, a sweetener, or a religious offering, honey's importance went far beyond food. It was a marker of the Egyptians' connection to the divine, regardless of social class. Picture yourself in the bustling heart of ancient Egypt, perhaps a modest home by the Nile. The aroma of honey fills the air as a mother carefully mixes it with figs, preparing a simple meal for her family. It's a treat, a reminder of the connection between the gods and her household, a small but meaningful indulgence. The honey isn't just nourishing, it's a precious gift, one that links her family to the divine forces that shape their world. Whether used in a humble meal or as part of a royal feast, honey serves as a constant reminder of Egypt's prosperity and divine favor. As we continue exploring honey's significance in ancient Egypt, let's focus on its role in personal and communal rituals. Honey wasn't just something you'd eat or apply to your skin. It was a key ingredient in social and religious events that brought the community together. Rituals in ancient Egypt were not just about appeasing the gods, but also about reinforcing the bonds within society. And honey was right at the center of these practices. Whether it was part of a marriage ritual, a birth celebration, or a harvest feast, honey served as a bridge between the spiritual and the physical, making every event a little sweeter, both literally and figuratively. Honey was often used in ceremonial offerings to the gods, as we've discussed, but it also played a role in more personal, community-centered rites. It was common for honey to be used in rituals associated with birth and marriage. A bride might have been presented with honey as part of her wedding ceremony, symbolizing sweetness and fertility for the new union. Similarly, honey was a part of the celebrations following the birth of a child, where it was thought to impart blessings of health and longevity. These rituals, like all in Egypt, were designed not only to honor the gods, but to strengthen social bonds and ensure prosperity for the family. Historians still debate whether honey's widespread use in these rituals was rooted in ancient Egyptian religious practices or simply practical tradition. Some believe that honey, being a gift from the gods, was more than just a symbolic offering. It was thought to bring divine blessings. Others argue that its use was primarily practical, as honey was believed to have the power to purify and protect. Regardless of the reasoning, one thing is clear: honey was central to many of the most important life events. It wasn't just for the gods, it was for the people. Imagine yourself at a vibrant Egyptian celebration, a wedding or a feast. The air is filled with music, the scent of incense, and the rich smell of honey as it is offered to the gods. The guests gather around, enjoying sweet treats made from honey, and each bite is infused with a meaning. It's not just food. It's a part of the ceremony, a way of ensuring that life's sweetest moments are blessed with divine favor. The honey serves as both a gift and a symbol, connecting the mortal world to the gods in a sweet, tangible way. Now, let's delve into the fascinating relationship between honey and the concept of immortality in ancient Egypt. While we've already explored how honey was used in embalming and funerary rituals, its deeper connection to the afterlife and the Egyptian belief in immortality deserves a closer look. In the Egyptian worldview, the journey to the afterlife was a central focus. and the preservation of the body was vital to ensure a safe passage to eternity. Honey, with its sacred symbolism and preservative properties, played a crucial role in ensuring that the deceased could transition to the next life and be preserved for eternity. Honey was believed to have both physical and spiritual properties that could preserve not just the body, but also the soul. As we've seen, honey was a key part of the mummification process, used to coat the body, preserve the organs, and ensure that the physical form remained intact as it journeyed into the afterlife. But beyond its practical use, honey was seen as a symbol of a life and vitality, which made it the perfect substance to help secure immortality. In Egyptian mythology, honey was often linked to the gods and the divine, and it was believed that by using honey in burial rituals, the deceased could be protected and granted eternal life. Historians still debate the exact reasons why the Egyptians placed so much significance on honey in their embalming practices. Some argue that it was its preservative qualities that made it valuable, while others believe that it was the spiritual connection to the gods that gave honey its immortality symbolism. One thing is clear, honey was essential to ensuring that the soul could continue to thrive in the afterlife, which, to the Egyptians, was the ultimate goal. Now imagine the scene, the tomb of a pharaoh, intricately adorned with gold and jewels, the air thick with the scent of incense. The body, carefully wrapped and mummified, is surrounded by jars of honey, placed as offerings for the gods. The honey, glowing softly in the dim torchlight, symbolizes the preservation of life, a promise of protection, and a bridge to the eternal world. In the afterlife, the soul will be sustained by the honey, which is more than just a substance, it is a sacred symbol of immortality. As we continue to unravel the many ways honey shaped ancient Egyptian culture, let's take a closer look at the material properties of honey itself, which were not just beneficial for the Egyptians' medical or spiritual needs, but also served more practical everyday purposes. Beyond its uses in rituals and food, honey's natural qualities made it an ideal medium for preservation and embalming. What the Egyptians might not have known scientifically, they understood through practice honey could prevent decay. It wasn't only the Egyptians who saw the value in honey as a preservative, other cultures followed suit, but Egypt's use of honey in this way stands out. One of the lesser-known facts about ancient Egyptian honey is that it wasn't only used to preserve food and bodies, it was also used to create long-lasting, durable materials. For instance, honey was sometimes mixed with other ingredients to create adhesives for building or for medical purposes. Honey's viscosity and natural stickiness made it an effective glue for binding materials like wood or leather. This practice may have been used in a variety of ways, including to construct items for temples, boats, and even furniture. The ancient Egyptians were skilled at using natural resources in ways that were practical and efficient, and honey's adhesive qualities were a testament to their ingenuity. Historians still argue how widespread this use of honey as an adhesive truly was. Was it limited to specific uses, like religious ceremonies or in royal construction, or did it extend into the everyday life of Egyptians? While there is no definitive answer, evidence suggests that honey-based adhesives were used in important projects that required durability, like in the creation of ornate tombs or sacred objects. Honey was, in many ways, an unsung hero of Egyptian innovation, quietly holding things together, whether in the form of a jar sealing a body or gluing pieces of wood together in a boat or household item. Imagine the careful process of crafting an important object in an ancient Egyptian workshop. The artisans gather, mixing honey with other natural substances to create a thick, sticky paste. The air smells faintly of sweetness as they use it to secure delicate parts of a wooden structure, binding the pieces together with precision. This honey, derived from the very land and bees of Egypt, becomes not just a material good, but a powerful tool that reflects the Egyptian mastery over their environment. Let's shift gears and look at how honey influenced not only the Egyptians, but also the broader world around them. While we focused on the many ways honey was used within Egypt, its influence didn't stop at the borders. Egypt, and as a major hub of the trade and culture, shared its knowledge and practices with neighboring civilizations. The use of honey as a medicinal agent, preservative, and spiritual offering was something that Egyptians were known for. And this knowledge spreads across the ancient world, from Mesopotamia to Greece and beyond. Egypt was at the crossroads of several ancient civilizations, and honey was one of the prized goods that Egypt exported to the Mediterranean world and the Near East. Not only was Egyptian honey considered superior for its purity and rich taste, but it was also highly valued for its therapeutic properties. Other civilizations took note of the Egyptians' use of honey and began to incorporate it into their own healing practices and religious rituals. Greek and Roman physicians, like Hippocrates, wrote about the benefits of honey in their medical texts, often drawing from the knowledge that it had been passed down from Egypt. The Egyptians' early understanding of honey's medicinal qualities, particularly its antibacterial properties, influenced these later medical traditions. Historians still argue over the extent of the Egyptian influence on the use of honey in other ancient cultures. Did the Greeks and Romans independently discover honey's healing power, or did they borrow it directly from the Egyptians? While it's hard to say for sure, it's clear that Egypt's practices and knowledge in the use of honey were widely admired and adopted by their neighbors. Picture a bustling market in a foreign city, far from Egypt's borders. A merchant offers jars of honey, its rich golden color gleaming under the sun. The honey, infused with Egyptian knowledge and power, spreads across the Mediterranean world, reaching the shelves of the Greek and Roman physicians. The merchant doesn't just sell honey, he sells the very essence of Egypt's wisdom, its understanding of health, preservation, and spirituality. In this moment, honey transcends its role as a mere food. It becomes a symbol of Egypt's cultural influence, a gift to the world. As we move forward, let's take a closer look at the scientific properties of honey that made it such a valuable resource in ancient Egypt. While the Egyptians didn't have modern science, they were remarkably observant and practical in their use of nature's resources. Honey's effectiveness as a preservative, its ability to heal wounds, and its suitability as a food source all made it an indispensable part of Egyptian life. But what did the Egyptians know about honey that made it so versatile? The secret, as we know today, lies in honey's natural properties. Honey is made primarily of glucose and fructose, two sugars that are naturally occurring in nectar. These sugars are highly stable, which gives honey its ability to resist spoilage and bacteria. In addition, honey has a low moisture content, which prevents the growth of microorganisms. This is why honey has been used as a preservative for both food and human bodies for thousands of years. The ancient Egyptians, while not understanding the science behind it, recognized these properties and utilized honey in ways that ensured its effectiveness in healing and preserving. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians understood these properties of honey in the way we do today, or if they simply stumbled upon its effectiveness through trial and error. Some believe the Egyptians were merely using honey because it worked, while others suggest they had a more sophisticated understanding of its benefits, possibly based on observation and experience over centuries. Either way, the Egyptians recognized honey as an invaluable substance that could prevent decay, heal wounds, and even protect their bodies in the afterlife. Imagine a skilled Egyptian healer preparing a poultice, mixing honey with crushed herbs and resins. As the healer applies the mixture to a patient's wound, they aren't just relying on a guess, they're using the practical, natural knowledge that has been passed down through generations. The honey, with its powerful antibacterial properties, will keep the wound from becoming infected, while the herbs will help it heal. It's a moment of ancient wisdom in action, a blend of knowledge and nature's resources that stands the test of time. As we delve deeper into the use of honey in ancient Egypt, we must also examine its broader cultural significance. Honey wasn't just a material good, it was tied to the fabric of Egyptian society, influencing their art, literature, and beliefs. Egyptians saw honey as a sacred substance, linked to the gods and the divine order of the universe. The rich golden hue of honey was associated with the sun, particularly with Ra, the sun god. Ra's rays brought life to the world, and honey, being so close to that golden light, was considered a symbol of a life, vitality, and divine favor. This divine connection made honey a frequent feature in Egyptian art. You could find depictions of honey being offered to the gods in temple reliefs and paintings, often shown as part of the ceremonial processions or rituals. Honey, as part of these offerings, symbolized purity, sweetness, and the continuity of a life, everything the Egyptians believed was essential to a harmonious existence. By offering honey to the gods, the people believed they were securing divine favor, ensuring protection, and ensuring a fruitful harvest or a successful journey in the afterlife. Historians still debate whether honey's religious significance was symbolic or whether the Egyptians genuinely believed in its magical properties. Some argue that honey was used purely as a symbolic offering to the gods, while others suggest that it may have been seen as a potent substance that could directly influence divine favor. What is clear, however, is that honey held a place of the great importance in the cultural and religious practices of ancient Egypt. It wasn't just about sweetness, it was about securing blessings and maintaining the balance between the divine and mortal worlds. Picture an ancient Egyptian priest in the heart of a grand temple, performing a ritual with a small vessel of honey. The air is thick with incense, the walls adorned with images of the gods. The priest, draped in fine linen and golden jewelry, offers the honey to the gods, knowing that this small act will ensure divine protection for his people. The honey, glowing in the soft light of the temple, is more than just a gift, it is a sacred offering, a way to bridge the human world and the divine realm, ensuring that life continues to thrive. As we continue to uncover honey's significance, it's important to note how honey influenced the social and cultural dynamics within ancient Egypt. While it's clear that honey had profound spiritual and medicinal uses, its role in Egyptian society went beyond the temple and the tomb. Honey was also a symbol of wealth, a luxury item that marked one's social status. Much like gold or fine linen, honey was something that could be given as a gift, used in feasts, and even exchanged in trade, representing not just material wealth, but also a connection to the divine. In the homes of the elite, honey was often used in the preparation of extravagant dishes and desserts. The wealthy Egyptians were known to indulge in honeyed cakes, pastries, and sweets dishes that were reserved for ceremonial feasts or special occasions. This indulgence wasn't just about enjoying the sweetness, it was about showcasing wealth and access to the finest goods. Serving honey at these feasts was an act of displaying one's status, offering guests a taste of the divine in the form of this golden substance. The rich texture and sweetness of honey made it a perfect addition to any meal, elevating the dining experience and reinforcing social hierarchies. Historians still debate whether honey was used primarily for the elite, or if it had a broader societal role. While the wealthy clearly had more access to honey, some argue that it was accessible to most Egyptians, especially in rural areas, where beekeeping was a common practice. Honey's role in religious rituals, as we've already explored, was open to all Egyptians, but it's likely that its use in food and feasts was largely confined to the upper echelons of society. Picture this: a lavish banquet in an Egyptian palace. The table spread with dishes rich in honey, from sweet fruit preserves to honeyed pastries. Guests gather around, dressed in fine linen and gold, enjoying their food and the festivities. The air is thick with the scent of honey and incense, the glow of oil lamps illuminating the faces of the diners. For the wealthy Egyptians, honey wasn't just a treat, it was a symbol of their prosperity, their connection to the gods, and their place within society. As we continue our exploration of honey in ancient Egypt, let's turn our attention to its lasting impact on Egyptian culture, which has endured through millennia. Honey wasn't just a temporary commodity in ancient Egypt, it was a part of a long-standing tradition that influenced both the physical and spiritual world of the Egyptians. Today, honey remains an integral part of Egyptian culinary and medicinal practices, a testament to its ancient legacy. But the influence of honey extends beyond just Egypt. Its role in the development of other ancient civilizations, particularly those in the Mediterranean and the Near East, is significant. The Egyptians were trailblazers in recognizing honey's value, and their practices set the stage for how honey would be utilized by other cultures. The transmission of Egyptian knowledge about honey, particularly its medicinal uses, had far-reaching effects. As the Egyptians traded with neighboring civilizations, they shared their knowledge of honey's healing properties. The Greeks, for instance, were known to adopt many of Egypt's health practices, including the use of honey in treating wounds and preserving food. Honey became a key ingredient in Greek medicine, with the famous physician Hippocrates using it in many of his remedies. The Egyptians' use of honey as a preservative also influenced the Greeks and Romans, who adopted similar methods for food preservation. Historians still debate how much of the knowledge about honey in Egypt was exported to other cultures and how much was independently discovered by neighboring civilizations. While it's clear that honey was valued in ancient Egypt for its medicinal and culinary qualities, it's equally evident that Egypt's influence on the wider world played a major role in spreading honey's importance. Through trade, conquest, and cultural exchange, honey made its way across the ancient world, becoming a symbol of prosperity, health, and divine favor wherever it was used. Picture this scene: a bustling marketplace in a Greek city, where traders from Egypt sell jars of golden honey. The air is filled with the rich, sweet aroma, drawing crowds from all around. A Greek merchant buys a jar, knowing that this honey isn't just a luxury, it's a piece of Egyptian knowledge, a gift from the gods themselves. The honey's journey from Egypt to Greece isn't just a transaction, it's the transfer of wisdom, a shared legacy that will last for centuries to come. As we near the end of our exploration into the world of honey in ancient Egypt, let's take a step back and reflect on its enduring legacy. Honey, with its rich history of use in healing, preservation, spiritual rituals, and even trade, wasn't just an essential product of ancient Egypt, it was a symbol of life itself. The golden nectar, revered by the Egyptians, transcended mere function and became a bridge between the physical world and the divine. Its influence is felt even today, in both the culinary world and modern medicine. Honey's role in Egyptian society was far-reaching. It wasn't just a sweetener, a medicine, or a ritualistic offering. It was a cultural cornerstone that supported and connected the social, spiritual, and economic aspects of life in Egypt. Its ability to heal wounds, preserve food, and connect the people with the gods made it indispensable. Honey was more than just an item you could pick up at the market. It was a symbol of Egypt's prosperity and its belief in the divine order of the universe. As we've seen, honey wasn't limited to just one group, it was essential to everyone, from the humblest farmers to the highest-ranking pharaohs. It played a role in the most significant moments of Egyptian life, from birth rituals to funerals. It sustained the living and protected the dead, all while linking the people of Egypt to the gods. Its golden hue symbolized life, the sun, and divine power, which is why it was so deeply intertwined with Egyptian culture and beliefs. So, as we come to the end of our journey through the sweet world of honey, imagine standing in the heart of ancient Egypt once more. The air is warm, filled with the scent of honey and incense, as you watch a priest offer the golden nectar to the gods, ensuring the blessings of Ra and the other deities. Honey is more than just a gift, it's the life force that connects everything, from the pharaoh's palace to the fields of the common folk. As we reflect on the lasting impact of honey in Egypt, it's remarkable to realize that, in many ways, this ancient practice is still alive today. Whether we use honey in our medicine, beauty products, or even just as a sweet treat, we are carrying on a tradition that dates back thousands of years. It's a reminder that the simplest of substances can have the most profound impact on human life, and the legacy of honey in Egypt will continue to sweeten our world for generations to come.